All right, thank you for staying with us. Our former Minister of Information and leader of the Pan Niger Delta Forum, Edwin Clark, has petitioned the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, on the rising political tension in Rivers State. This action follows the recent threat by some members of the Rivers State House of Assembly to impeach the governor of the state, Siminalayi Fubara. In an open letter addressed to the Inspector General of Police, the elder statesman warned that the threat by the 27 former members of the State House of Assembly to impeach Fubara is likely to cause the breach of peace and breakdown of law and order in Rivers State. Mr. Clark recalled that the protracted crisis began when former Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, parted ways with Fubara, his political godson and successor. According to him, the duo parted ways because of Wike's ambition to control the politics and governance of the state while serving as Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. Well, joining us in the studio is a public affairs analyst, Oladendi Ario. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you.
Now, the issues happening in Rivers State is taking a different dimension. Just yesterday, we saw so many things had happened. So many things happened. We saw there was accusation from members of the local government saying that the governor had withheld allocation for the state, and then we now saw that a new speaker had emerged at the end of the day yesterday. And this is taking a dimension that is quite concerning for political watchers and even Nigerians with developments coming out of Rivers State. Let's get your perspective and perception of developments.
I think the elder statesman, Edwin Clark, left things too late before responding. You remember immediately Fubara became governor, Wike, they call him Minister Wike now, didn't hide it that he sponsored Fubara, he sponsored all the senators, he funded all the members of House of Assembly, House of Rep, everybody, and he called them to come out and say if he was lying against them. That signposted the beginning of the crisis. By the time they were going to be picking commissioners, of course, they were mostly his men. It got to a point that people who were members of the same party, House of Assembly members with the governor, they left their party and joined APC. They now became opposition. Unfortunately for them, we have precedents in cases where assembly members defected from the party that gave them the ticket that ended their election into another party. Section 106, IG2, was very specific. And at the moment that happens, they should resign and offer themselves for re-election in their new political party. The basic reason, which the Constitution allows, is when there is a crisis in the party. But at that time, and not till today, there was no crisis in PDP. So this thing started building up from there to the point where the governor had to demolish the House of Assembly and they had to make do with meeting in odd and end places. And when it was looking, hell was coming down, the president got involved, invited them to Abuja, Wike and Fubara, and there was an agreement that they signed, which Fubara now said was not constitutional. That was just a political solution to the problem. Unfortunately, that has not achieved anything. And I think it's like that because Wike has refused to release his hold on power.
So?
Sorry?
How so?
When you say how so, he may not be talking now, but you know when somebody is dancing in the open and you can't see the drummer, there must be somewhere sending the signal.
How did he dance? That would be my next question.
Yeah, I understand.
He has not said anything.
Okay, so it got to a point now where Fubara now he started talking. Before he wasn't talking. Initially he said he would resign for good governance and peace in Rivers State. Later he said he wasn't going to resign, that he was going to fight it. Okay? Now, Tony Okocha, the interim APC chairman in Rivers State, has been talking from both sides of his mouth, asking them to impeach the governor. Whereas the governor also came and said, as far as he was concerned, the state has no members of the House of Assembly. You know, but when you look at the Constitution, plus the fact that they had gone to court, and the court upheld that they had lost their election, the case is in the appeal court now. One would have expected them to at least calm down and wait for the court, but they don't want to take laws into their hands and then said they want to impeach the governor. You don't expect him to fold his arms and allow himself to be sacrificed or crucified. It's not Jesus Christ. So, again, yesterday, one of the members of the Elder State Council, Miss Anki Briggs, she also came out to decry the activities of the president, the assembly, that they should know that constitutionally they no longer have local standard as far as Rivers government is concerned. But they are insisting, and there's been this back and forth and all of that. But I think what Edwin Clark did can be said to be in the right direction, because we can see crisis coming up any moment from now if that thing is not stemming in the time. Don't forget that when the governor wanted to celebrate his victory, there was elaborate preparation. They had a school field loaded with sound system, chairs, tables, and canopies. Some guys came there and set everything ablaze. Yeah, including the sound equipment. That in the video, the man who brought the equipment was in tears because they rented those things from him and paid him some paltry sums only for the equipment to be burnt. So that's why I told you that the crisis may, override everybody and then take away the peace in Rivers State. Perhaps if the IG should step in, it might be able to stem the tide.
Well, they've actually, all parties have actually engaged in some form of illegalities one way or the other. For instance, the local government chairman accusing the governor of withholding their funds and all of that. Even the governor has actually warned them not to even appear before the lawmakers in the state, as well as the lawmakers also defecting from their own party to another party, right, which you've actually spoken to. So there is no way we can describe anyone as coming to equity with clean hands, do you think?
No. Coming to equity with clean hands, well, that may not be appropriate to their situation, because as it is, we have precedents where out of assembly members, they defected, and then they were pronounced no longer members. I think it was in a Borno state or something, when Guni was the governor. And another one, maybe in Bayelsa, if I can remember. So because there was the constitution was very specific. You can leave your party only if there is a crisis or there has been splinter groups emerged from the party. So long as that had not existed in PDP, those guys had no business leaving the party for APC. They didn't mean well. Okay, and I can tell you that they have also contributed into making things difficult and not workable as it is. Because if they had remained in their party, which is the party of the governor, it would have been possible for the party to find what they call family solution to it.
They shot themselves in the foot.
Right, but that was what they did. Whoever initiated that move or whoever instigated them to make that move, unfortunately didn't mean well for them at the end of the day. So for me, they must wait for the court to give the appeal court, the final answer, okay, you guys are still members of the House or you're no longer a member. Now they have no position as far as the law is concerned.
So are you saying quickly before I go to our next guest that the emergence of a new speaker
now
is what now? Is an illegality?
Because they have to wait as far as the state is concerned and the court is concerned. There is no House of Assembly. They must wait for the court to make a pronouncement before they can be reconstituted. And if there will be an election, then they go and contest.
So let's get the National Legal Advisor is joining us from Port Harcourt. He is the National Legal Advisor of the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, Barrister Henry Ekene. He's joining us now. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Barrister Henry, are you there? Can you hear me?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to join you this morning.
Right. I believe that you must have been listening to
Thank you for having
our
me.
guest.
It's my pleasure.
Yes, I believe you must have been hearing what our guest said.
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Saying that the matter of the case before the courts is still something that members of the State Assembly needed to wait for before an emergence of a new speaker. Now, talk to us from the eyes or the position of the law. What transpired yesterday? Is it an illegality because there is a case in court already? Even though, according to the Constitution, those who shifted grounds politically, especially those who moved from the PDP to the APC, the Constitution does not recognize them as members because their seats are meant to be declared vacant. But because the case is in court, and we saw a new development yesterday, talk to us from the perspective of the law, how you interpret what is going on.
Okay, thank you. Clearly, whatever is presented before a court will depend on what prayers the parties that approach the court are brought before the court for determination. But to put in clear perspective, there is no matter in court, to the best of my knowledge, with respect to anybody seeking the Rivers State House of Assembly to stay proceedings or to cease to exist. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, particularly Section 90, established a House of Assembly for each of the 36 states. And the Rivers State House of Assembly exists as a creation of the Constitution. And the matters, to the best of my knowledge, that were in court were in respect to certain individuals. There's a distinction between the Rivers State House of Assembly and then individual members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. So the seizure, or if you like, the vacation of seats of a member of the Rivers State House of Assembly that has become a subject of litigation has got nothing to do with the existence of the Rivers State House of Assembly. So it is to that extent I will differ with respect to the view of the guest in the studio that the Rivers State House of Assembly ought to have ceased to exist in some form, to the extent that the new Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Victor Oko Jumbo, who I am not sure, I'm not aware, that is part of those that have his legitimacy as a member of the House being contested in court. So if at all there is anybody, I made this comment yesterday, if at all there is anybody or a member of the Rivers State House of Assembly that ought to stay away from the proceedings or activities of the Rivers State House of Assembly, it ought to be Martin Amewule and the 26 other friends of his, who arguably are former members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. It is the legitimacy of those members that has become subject of litigation, that ideally, with respect to the jurisdiction of the court, and then the power of the court to entertain those questions that have been put before the court for determination, that those members ought to stay away or even hold their peace. One died, we reduced to 31, and then one eventually resigned. So it means that we ought to have 30, but some days, sometime 2023, 27 of them decided to leave the house by taking a step, leaving the political party that sponsored them to office to another political party. And that, by the provisions of the Constitution, would have been an automatic vacation of their office. There are other members of the Rivers State House of Assembly who are not impeded in any way or do not have any restriction in any regard. So they can continue as members of the House of Assembly. So there is no litigation. For me, there is no action in court that will restrain the emergence of a member of House of Assembly who has no restriction at all to emerge as a speaker. And then for those remaining members to continue with the proceedings of the Rivers State House of Assembly. We cannot afford to exist in a day without having a functional House of Assembly. The Constitution having given one to Rivers State.
So if I hear you correctly, what happened yesterday is legal?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, it's legal. And then in what regard? I had said that the Rivers State House of Assembly, having been established under Section 90 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, continues to exist until Rivers State ceases to exist as a state. That's one. Then two, there are members of the Rivers State House of Assembly that are known already that were elected in 2023 to represent respective constituencies. And I've given an account of how we have depleted to perhaps just about 3 or 4 or 5 as the case may be. I say one thing, that a new thing happens does not mean that the law has been suspended, that the Constitution has been suspended. We probably have never had a time where the membership of any House of Assembly would have depleted to about 3 or 4 in any of the states. But we have had where it has depleted to 8 in some states, depleted to about 7 in some states. So if we had a 32-member House of Rivers State House of Assembly, and unfortunately, unnecessarily and in an avoidable circumstance, we had a situation where 27 of them decided in one full swoop to leave the House by their action, the remaining members have legitimacy to continue proceedings. And the Constitution recognizes that. And they must have a speaker. The Constitution
All right, we'll continue this conversation when we return from the break. Do stay with us.
Dark marks, I've tried everything. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using Lumina 630 from Nivea.
All right, we're still looking at the situation in Rivers State, and we still have our guests speaking on the issue. In the studio here in Lagos, we have Public Affairs Analyst Oladende Areyo, and from Port Harcourt, the National Legal Advisor of the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, Barrister Henry Ekine. And Barrister Henry Ekine was speaking with us before we went on the break, where he said that what happened yesterday was legal and that there must be a speaker. From that, a speaker must emerge as it is. But you wanted to react.
Yeah, because
to some of the things he said.
I may have to go and sit for jump, go and read law. We had a House of 32 members proclaimed and established. One died, one left, leaving 30. Of the remaining 30, 27 defected, leaving only 3. Are we now going to say that Rivers State has a representative assembly of only 3 people, and then they can they can go on legislating? I mean,
deciding for the generality.
I cannot.
People of the state.
3 people out of 32. If that is not right, then what can we say? I mean, if that is not wrong, what can we say is wrong? 3 out of 32. Now representing the entire state, it doesn't go like that. That's why I said I may have to go and read law, so one can be able to speak with authority. Because I don't understand where the learned...
He's a lawyer.
Yeah, he's a lawyer. That's why I call him.
From the position of the law, that's his argument.
I'm not. That's why I'm not arguing with him. Yeah. Maybe if it's herbal medicine or something else, where I'm a guru, hey, I will go after him. But I give it to him. But I mean, but we sit. Do we now say on what ground will 3 people now sit to adjudicate over issues of that should be managed by 32 people in a whole state? We've had cases where minority gathered together.
And that's why there were those who called for the conduct of an election for the seats of these other persons.
That, for me, should have been the appropriate thing to do. But before they will do that, they all have individual cases in court. If you say it's not a collective case, as he said, fine by me. But they all have issues because they individually resigned their membership. They were elected individually. And by leaving the party that gave them the ticket, the Constitution was very clear on that, okay, they stopped being members of the assembly.
Right.
So whether we are looking at it collectively or individually, it's the same thing. Let's not play with semantics here, please.
Right. Barrister Ekine, maybe you help us to understand this better, because this is now the issue of people who are torn between morality and legality, or let's say morality and constitutionality. Could you help us understand this better? Now we don't have quality representation of the peoples of Rivers State who are, in the State House of Assembly. Does it make sense constitutionally or legally that 3 people will adjudicate on matters that will affect the entirety of the people of Rivers State?
Thank you very much. We have a constitution that is a ground norm and governs every issue of law in this country. And we proclaim that we are a constitutional democracy, and then that the rule of law is a cardinal philosophy in Nigeria. And that will mean that I beg to make a point that there's a distinction between law and morality. So we're not talking about morality here, but clear constitutional provisions and then the spirit of the law. When we profess to say rule of law should prevail, it means that the supremacy of the law, the predominance of the law against any arbitrariness or any alternative, which in itself is not law. That's what the rule of law means. So it is only the law that will define. And to that extent that I argued and I said, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria establishing a House of Assembly for Rivers State. And let me make some points clear here too. Indeed, I sympathize. It's my state. And I worry that we'll find ourselves in the current situation where unthinkable, we never imagined that a time and a day will come that we will have this seemingly, if you like, 27 members just moved away. It's unfortunate. Those constituencies they represent lack representation, no doubt about it, but it's not the making of any individual. It's not the making of the 3 or 4 legitimate members that are remaining. And that was why the Rivers State House of Assembly, before the resignation of the former Speaker, Right Honorable Edison Wike, he had actually communicated to INEC. It is in the public domain. All the media carried this. At that time, that House of Assembly had a speaker in the person of Right Honorable Edison Wike, who presided over. And then recall, is because of the concern that most of the constituencies in the state were not represented, they adjourned their sitting Senedai. That is to say, they never wanted to just be 4 of them to be legislating, making laws, and then carrying on the business of the House. And so they adjourned to such a time that they thought that INEC would have responded to the notification that the certain seats, 27 of them, have become vacant, and that there was a need to conduct election within 90 days. But unfortunately, INEC has remained mute up to now. I have not heard of any response from the side of INEC to refusing to conduct election to fill those vacant positions. What the Constitution required that a speaker would do at the time that those vacant positions existed was done, and the elections were not conducted. Would we rather continue to have illegitimate members to continue to preside or purport to preside and be members of the Universal Assembly? The answer would be no. So these other members who do not suffer any vacation of their seats by reason of defection, they haven't defected, they have not been expelled or anyway lost their membership of the House of Assembly. However, there was a purported suspension by those who have left. It has become a situation of necessity that since they had left, the purported suspension has become an academic exercise. And I've made an illustration that if there are 2 students in a school and one was expelled or rusticated and another was merely suspended, between the 2 of them, who is still a member of the school is the one that was suspended. If the school had any reason that there is no other representation, that member is legitimate to represent. So I tell you, sir, it is not a question of having only 2 members left in the University House of Assembly. The Constitution is to the effect that a House of Assembly will continue to exist, but that whenever there is any vacancy, the speaker should communicate INEC, and then INEC should conduct election. So if we have concerns and worries that we should have a full member House of Assembly returned in Rivers State, then INEC should act up. That's the situation. It does not create a situation of illegitimacy with respect to the 3 members. So the 3 or 4 members are legitimate members of the House of Assembly, and it is their house. They're the only ones remaining. They will do the housekeeping. They have the right to convey.
Barrister Ikine, so by implication, if you can hear me, Barrister Ikine. Can you hear me, Barrister Ikine?
Yes, I can hear you, please.
Fantastic. So by implication, is it that Governor Fubara is now meddling in the affairs of the legislative arm of the government because there is separation of powers? The House have invited, or the House rather, they invited the 23 local government chairmen, which Governor Fubara is asking them not to show up. Now you said the House is recognized, the House is still there, is intact, according to the Constitution. So is Governor Fubara not interfering in the affairs of the legislature now in the state?
Thank you. I would rather, I will pose a rhetorical question. Can I, as Henry Kinney, a guest to you now, invite or purport to act as a member of the Universal House of Assembly and invite council members to come before me for any consideration? The answer will be no. And if the governor is seized of that invitation by me or a group of my friends, the governor will tell them, look, don't go there. That gentleman and his friends are not members of the Universal House of Assembly, so they are not acting legitimately as the University House of Assembly. Now, when it is not an interference, because he was specific in the sense that that invitation was by the Martin Ameule and his 26 friends. I have personally held a view, this is not a view of a group I represent, but I have personally held a view that they do not have that legitimacy. So they cannot even purport to act as the members of the Rivers House of Assembly, let alone to invite members of the Rivers, local government areas in Rivers State. So, and the governor has also not pretended, lately though, that he has seized or that he has the discretion, which he does have, to de-recognize any individual who is not a legitimate member of the Universal House of Assembly. So if it were a situation where the legitimate Universal House of Assembly had this invitation, then the governor or any individual in that regard, including Mr. President, directs them not to appear before a legitimate Universal House of Assembly, then it will be a constitutional violation, an interference with the powers and functions of the legislature. I think the situation in Rivers State has to be considered in context, and objectively so. It appears to be confusing and muddled up, that an analyst will even have to probably examine critically what the issues are before you make an opinion. The clear situation here is that sometime in 2023, some 27 members decided on their own not to continue to be members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. Where do they derive the powers to act as such, to continue to act as members? Whether Mr. Governor acknowledged them at some point, or whether the entire state acknowledged them at some point, it does not underwrite or overrule, or if you like, upturn the provisions of the Constitution. As a constitutional scholar, I uphold the provisions of the Constitution tenaciously. It doesn't matter how many members or how many citizens tend to hold any view that is in contravention with the provisions of the Constitution.
So it is the Constitution what you are saying is the intervention made by the president, which the governor agreed to at the time, is not holding water and does not have any role to play as it is because it's not backed by the Constitution.
I have said that several times in my conversations, that Mr. President, with respect to him, and I say it again on national television, has sworn to oath, pursuant to the 7th schedule of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to uphold the provisions of the Constitution, to defend the Constitution, to observe all of the provisions of the Constitution, and to ensure observance. That's one. Section 1 of the Constitution is clear that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is supreme. and that supremacy is above every other law, even a law legitimately made by the National Assembly, I mean an act, or a law by any legislative house, even actions and inactions of authorities, including Mr. President. So Mr. President cannot, by choice, suspend any provisions of the Constitution and purport to act by some form of discretion or directive, and think that that directive of Mr. President will override any provision of the Constitution. That would be strange and alien and a threat to our democracy and a threat to our Constitution.
So why did the governor agree to that arrangement, to that resolution?
That resolution is unconstitutional. Everybody accedes to that.
So why did the governor agree to it is the question.
Yes, please.
Yes,
I hold the view that even Mr. President knew that his position with respect to the 8th clause purported agreement cannot take the place of the Constitution. Take, for instance, Mr. President cannot
to agree to make that agreement. So why did he agree if he also understood the Constitution?
Vested on that governor by Section 192 of the Constitution to appoint commissioners of his choice and to the number that he so desires. That is the provision of the Constitution. Number two, the president cannot derogate from the absolute
power. You're not answering my question, Sekina, you're not answering my question. I asked you a direct question. Why did the governor then agree to that resolution if you are talking about constitutionality and all of it, and he is expected to understand that because he was not under any sort of pressure?
I'm not speaking for the governor. I include the governor in my submission. Whether it is the president, the governor, all of those persons that were in that meeting, including the legislators and the minister of the Federal Capital Territory. And in fact, all persons, I don't exempt the governor of my state, to my view, in that regard, as far as that meeting was concerned, whatever justification he had to be in that meeting, as a constitutional scholar, I hold all of them culpable to the effect that why would they consider matters that were constitutional in that purported meeting in a room in the State House? But howbeit, if he considered and he has now realized that, look, those matters were constitutional matters and that his concession had nothing to do with the provisions of the Constitution and he reneges, it cannot be enforced against him.
All right, let's bring our conversation to the studio. Oladende Aria, you need to react to some of the things
I listened to him.
Yes.
Without doubt, it may not be visible, but the governor will have been definitely under some form of pressure. Because the state was not enjoying governance, either quality or...
To have agreed to that resolution.
I remember, we're talking politics now.
Right.
And it was, what they did was political resolution.
Right.
You understand me? Right. That they are political does not mean they are not constitutional. It depends on the dictates. And where the dictates of the resolution are no longer agreeable to the governor, he had to come out and say that they are no longer, they are not constitutional, that was pure political. And they are not binding on him to agree or to implement any of them. You can't fault him for saying all of that. But the tension then was palpable. Everybody knew it. And something had to be done to restore peace to Rivers State. Unfortunately, all of us are speaking grammar here and there. The people of the state are the losers at the end of the day because they are not getting governance that they deserve, that they voted for. The governor is not having the peace of any type of peace to at least manage the state, implement his programs or the party plans if they had any. But everybody is talking front and back. And to my greatest shock, the council chairmen are all PDP people. So I don't see them now begin to work against their party member, if not that some people, some fifth columnists have gotten involved. Now engineering them against the governor.
How so?
You understand me?
No, I don't.
So because the state has not had time to even sit for a long time I mean, they are out of assembly to sit for a long time because of all these crises. So it is not impossible that funds allocation, which should still be passed by the House, okay, has not been affected. Therefore, they might not have gotten what they deserve, so to say. Right. But they need to understand that in the midst of the crisis, things won't be normal.
A lot of people have actually blamed Nyesom Wike, for some of the utterances, the media interviews and all of that. And also, some people blamed Governor Fubara, because blame have been flying all around. Others also put the blames at the desk of the president. Right. So, do you feel that all of these parties, especially both parties, both warring parties, have been listening to, fifth columnist, as you said,
right,
which has not, given impetus to resolve this
as far as I'm concerned, I will prefer that the leaders of thought in Rivers State should come up, be impartial now, arrange for a meeting, okay, between the governor and Wike. Don't forget that the two of them are their indigents.
So it's a political solution that you are...
they let them call them together and, each of them should submit what are these grievances or demands or whatever, and then they find a solution. We cannot continue this roll here today, gone tomorrow thing. Time is going. Before you know, I mean, exactly, and the people are not getting governed. Things are not happening. Schools are not, they're not building schools, they're not building roads and all of that. So it's not the way to go. I enjoyed this presentation, fantastic, okay? But the reality, at the end of the day, politics is, democracy is about people. I did not get what they deserve.
Bottom line, a political solution is still the way out.
That is the only way out. For as long as everybody is holding the gun, we will not get anywhere.
Unfortunately, Barrister Ekine, our time is up, but do you agree that a political solution is the way out? Quickly, in 60 seconds.
I disagree. I disagree. And that's the problem. That's the reason we have had this problem in this country. What is political solution? When we have clear legal constitutional matters, hold somebody responsible. The former governor is now a minister of the Federal Capital Territory. He has nothing to run in conflict with the governor of the state, who has constitutional functions to perform. What will the governor and the minister come and sit down to negotiate about? The powers of the governor? Is it to negotiate the powers of appointing commissioners, appointing special advisors, the powers to run the state?
Are you saying that out of court settlements also is unconstitutional and it does not resolve any matter? Is that what you're saying?
Excellent. Out of court settlement does not drift from the matters that are before the court. I'm a lawyer practicing every day. If you even have a reason to seek leave of court, to go to settle a matter, you are not going outside of the matters that are before the court. So if anything, it's got to be, you will return to the court. You cannot resolve the matter at home. When you get the settlement, you come back to the court. It has to be the court that will determine it to finality. So it has to be the Constitution that will determine this matter to finality.
All right. National Legal Advisor of the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, Barrister Henry Ekine. Thank you so much for your time. He joined us from Port Harcourt, and in the studio here in Lagos, Public Affairs Analyst Oladeyindri Ariyo. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure and then a veritable opportunity to reach out to our people.